Tonight we glide into winter's chill, our breath freezing to frost before leaving our lips. You stand at the edge of the Old West, the world around you swallowed by the storm. That storm writhes like a living thing, gales shoving you violently. The horizon vanishes behind a white wall, cold seeps through cracks, slips into your collar, swiftly reminding you in this wilderness. Without swift thought and swift action, without a touch of luck, before settling in, please take a second to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I share. If you wish to spread the word, mark your town and current time in the comments. Now extinguish the light. You trudge forward in your boots, soles sinking deep into fresh snow. As daylight fades, you can almost hear the whispers of the past in the cold. The frontier and the night hangs between stillness and fury, where sounds are as light as feathers or as sharp as shattering ice. You reach the shallow valley, the very place pioneers sought refuge from the storm. You can still feel that openness, nothing but sky overhead, plains stretching ahead, and whatever shelter they could build before darkness fell. A few logs and a leaky roof often constituted what they called home. The storm begins, burying the cabin in snow, the eaves vanishing, the window frames blurring, the entire structure seeming smaller under the weight. You lean in to touch it, your gloved palm feeling the frost-covered roughed ember. A simple truth dawned: many early frontier cabins had no true roof. Pioneers had rushed to build them before the weather closed in, cobbling together makeshift structures. Cracks in the wood were stuffed with mud and moss, any windbreak deemed useful. But, in a blizzard, everything moves, pressing your ear to the wall. You heard groans echoing through the timber. Intriguing details surfaced. Some settlers swore the cabin walls spoke during winter storms, whispering of snow's weight or lost travelers' ghosts. Did they truly believe, or use it to numb their fear? That mystery remains unsolved. To this day, debate rages whether these tales were frontier superstition or boredom's disguise. The warmth inside was sparse and scattered, as if someone had painstakingly spread a faint glow across the space to ask for it. Closing the door, snowflakes melted on your shoulders, the air thick with the scent of wood smoke, old pine resin, and damp wool. Your fingertips began to fall, tingling with a sensation both soothing and sharp. Had a family lived here? Or had travelers built the cabin only to move on? Whoever they were, they knew well how fragile comfort is in this wilderness. The line between warmth and peril was a hair's breadth away, yet enough to trip anyone. Surveying the cabin, you recalled the pioneers' relentless battle against the cold. Each night a race stacking firewood, patching the roof, hunting for cracks where icy drafts crept in like spies. The cabin stood like a lone boat in a sea of snow, every sound a warning. What would break first? You approached the small window where the wind rattled the shutters. Outside, snow swirled like wild curls, each crystal a reminder that in the Old West, cold was not merely a backdrop, it was an enemy. You retreat inside, curling up beside the hearth. The flames cough out orange-yellow sparks, faint, yet better than nothing. Many early settlers learned from native tribes the stove's placement matters. A central hearth warms more than one against the wall, but not everyone had the means or time to remodel the floor. They made do. You pull your coat tighter, curling into the warm corner. That small space, beyond the fire's circle, the cabin felt like an icebox. The wind howled again, like a river of air crashing against the walls. You stood still, letting your eyes adjust to the dimness. Objects slowly emerge in the faint light. Blankets in the corner, wooden crates, tools, ropes, the half-full bucket topped with ice, nails hammered into the beam, perhaps once holding gloves to dry. You ponder the people who once lived here. Did they sleep soundly? Did they fear the storms, whispering in the darkness? Longing for dawn, you approach the sleeping area, straw eyes scattered, twisted, and frightened. Early settlers used whatever they could find, straw or fallen leaves, as mattresses. Over time, the material decomposed into hard lumps, pressing against ribs and spines all night. Still, it was better than the frozen floor. You run your hand over the bedding, feeling the bone-chilling cold. The very thought of lying down makes your joints ache. A shiver runs through your body. You imagine yourself curled up here, exposed to the howling wind. The wind rattles the door. The fire flickers low. The oppressive weight of this moment is strangely comforting. You find the small wooden chair and sit by the hearth once more. The fire crackles softly, and your thoughts drift to the pioneers' hearts during storms. Are the livestock safe? Are the neighbors well? Will the roof collapse before dawn? Have they stored enough water before the buckets freeze? The years of pioneering the West were hard, but the night storms were harder still. People tried to sleep, but sleep was as unpredictable as the weather. Some nights, you fell into sleep quickly, your body simply giving up. Other nights, you paced, whispered prayers, or hummed a tune to stifle the fear. A pair of boots began drying by the fire, giving off a faint scent of damp leather mingling with smoke, pine, and some other indescribable aroma. You picture yourself shedding layers, settling onto the rough mattress, perhaps with your coat still on, perhaps not. Sometimes warmth wins out, sometimes movement does. You reach toward the fire, carefully avoiding the coals, their heat a faint yet real promise. You lean back, letting wind and fire weave the frontier's lullaby. Thoughts swirl. If the storm rages all night, you'll need every skill a Western veteran teaches. How to preserve lingering warmth, how to keep fear from stealing sleep, how to listen to the cabin's sounds without conjuring illusions, how to trust the walls even as they groan. Eyelids grow heavy as the storm roars outside, yet a quiet settles within the rugged cabin. You are learning the rhythm of frontier nights, and the story has only just begun. Rising from the hearth, you walk deeper into the single room. The storm slams harder against the cabin, the walls trembling in waves, as if ashamed to reveal their fragility. You trace the inner wood, feeling the cold pulse through the timber, spreading inward like a slow invasion. The old West's cabins were hastily built, and tonight you feel every shortcut. This place wasn't built for show, but to withstand the winds seeping through every crack. You curl up against the back wall, where the temperature drops sharply, coals seeping through gaps once packed with clay, now crumbling. A simple truth surfaces: many frontier cabins were built in mere days, held together by rudimentary saddle or beam-inus joints, for settlers lacked both tools and time for precision. It sounds brave, until the blizzard arrives, reminding you that speed doesn't equate to sturdiness. You lean close to a crack, a cold draft brushing your cheek. Someone long ago attempted a patch, stuffing a piece of cloth stiff as a board into the gap. Such makeshift solutions are everywhere. Bone buttons, oiled paper window patches, floors covered in mud because wood was too precious. Whispers tell curious tales. Some settlers smeared bare fat into cracks, thinking it would block the wind, only to attract ravenous rodents. Was this wise or a futile fantasy? Experts still debate it when they need light conversation. You pick up a small stick from the floor and tap the walls, each hollow sound different at every point. Outside, snow begins piling against the cabin walls. You imagine it rising like a tide, pressing against the structure. Snow insulates, but only if the foundation can bear the weight. Stepping back, you survey the room, not just a shelter, but a battlefield where heat and cold wage war every second. The crackling fire draws your gaze once more. You approach the hearth, passing beneath a low beam, initials carved into its surface. Your breath forms mist as you step away. The ancestors understood the laws of heat. Even if they couldn't fully control them, they knew a low roof trapped warmth. So they deliberately built these compact wooden huts. Spacious rooms may be beautiful, but they're hard to heat. Tonight, you favor this narrow space, where every designed detail is crafted to guard your sleep. You crouch beside the floorboards, your palm pressed against the uneven wood. It feels like winter ice. The frozen ground beneath the cabin's foundation is as hard as ice, making the floorboards the coldest surface indoor. The coldest surface. Sometimes settlers would lay straw along the edges or use rugs made from animal hides. You imagine a family layering every warm item they could find. A single rug offering a luxury of warmth. Your hand slides across the boards, splinters pricking through your gloves. You picture a small child sleeping on such a floor, difficult and restless. Yet this was the reality for thousands. Another gust of wind lashes the roof, making it groan shrilly. The sound is unsettling, making you look up and wonder if you should find a more stable footing. The Old West often used sod roofs, thick blocks of mud and grass laid over slender rafters. The weight of snow pressing down on the sod is terrifying. You watch the thin flakes drifting between the rafters, harmless yet unsettling. Imagine lying here trying to sleep. The darkness filled with crackling pops, snapping snaps, and groans of shifting beams, each sound like the prelude to disaster. You move toward the corner where a hook is nailed into the wall, holding a frozen coat beside a pair of woolen gloves warm thin at the fingertip. Touching the coat, you find it covered in frost. Whoever lived, you must have rushed inside before the blizzard, hastily shedding their outer layer and praying the fire would hold. You drift back to the bedding, the storm at rest calling to you again, though not in a comforting way. Kneeling, you press your hand into the mattress. It's uneven, the straw bundles pushed to the sides. Pioneers sometimes replenish the mattress with fresh straw each season, but mattresses left unchanged year after year inevitably deteriorated. The straw rotted and sank, gathering dust and mold, occasionally harboring insect infestations. Sleeping on such a mattress during a blizzard meant abandoning comfort for mere utility. As you approached the wall behind the bed, a deeper chill seeped in. Imagine the settlers patching cracks at night, using every material at hand: moss mud, horsehire minus mixed clay, cloth scraps, even ash minus blended paste. You inhaled deeply, picturing the scent of fresh mud drying by the hearth, the earthy rawness, imagining dust on your tongue. As the wind rattles the rafters, you trace the cracks, pondering the pioneer's delicate balance. Seal too tightly, and the air grows thick and smoky, suffocating seal too loosely, and the cold seeps in. They had to find that delicate equilibrium, with almost no guidance, no books, no weather reports, only instinct, and the occasional trick shared on the wagon road, or lessons learned from native neighbors. The storm outside grows fiercer. You can hear it, the wind now more frantic. As if you pace to the window, pressing your palm lightly against the icy glass. Frost has claimed the entire pane, branches and swirls spreading across the window pane. Through the hazy ice crystals, you see only white flashes and blur. The storm devours the world. You stand still, listening. Behind you, floorboards creak, the roof clatters, distant snaps echo from the woods, perhaps snow-crushing trees, or the howl of wind snapping limbs. You think of the pioneers, tossing and turning through such long nights, tiptoeing in concentration, wondering if their homes would hold until dawn. The hearth crackles, you kneel to add wood, sparks dancing upward, warmth enveloping your hands, yet your shoulders remain icy. You glance once more at the bed. Ultimately, even the bravest pioneer must lie down and hope the walls will keep the darkness at bay. You draw in a slow breath, letting it mingle with the warmth, your thoughts lingering on the sensation, the warmth caressing your face. Yet your back remains icy. Smoke clings to your clothes. Dryness catches in your throat. Your eyelids grow heavy, yet sleep refuses to come. The cabin is too alive, too fragile, too quick to remind you of the danger you face. You sit up again, listening, learning to recognize the house's rhythms, each creak a story, each draft a warning, each pocket of warmth a gift. Tonight you finally understand how pioneers survive between eternal cold and fragile cracks. Sleep is never a gift to be taken for granted. Curiosity, not comfort, pulls you back toward the corner where the bed is laid. The straw mattress is uneven and worn. As if challenging you, you crouch down and lift a corner of the coarse cloth cover. Inside, the straw is tangled, flattened in some spots, sharp points poking out in others. You imagine someone gathering these materials in haste months ago, stuffing them in before the first frost arrived. They never imagined a future stranger would lift it, inspect it, judge its firmness. The basic truth surfaces: most pioneer families slept on sacks stuffed with whatever filling was at hand. Straw was common, but stalks, pine needles, cattle fluff, even corn husk scraps served as padding. Pioneers often had to replace the filling, sometimes seasonally, as it easily compacted and molded. You press your palm into the mattress pad. It offers almost no rebound, like sleeping on a bundle of broom corn, pretending to aid sleep, running your hand along the edge. Imagining the pioneers' beds. For the pioneers here, this is the touch of time. After hours of labor, they collapsed onto this coarse surface, never expecting comfort. The aches of long days mingled with the mattresses and evenings, and exhaustion finally dragged them into fitful sleep. You catch a faint musty scent, the distinctive aroma of aged high and slowly air minus dried bones. Not unpleasant, just simple and familiar. Memories surface, some firmly believed scattering dried mint or lavender on the mattress repelled bedbugs, while others claimed hiding tobacco would deter insects. Whether these methods worked or were merely psychological comfort remains a topic experts debate when studying pioneer diaries. You smile softly. Pest control. Others claimed hiding tobacco in the straw prevented lice from breeding. Whether these methods worked or were merely psychological comfort remains a point of contention among experts studying frontiered iris and letters to this day. Thinking of this, you smile faintly. Even in the harshest environments, humans still seek small comforts. A handful of herb leaves might be a luxury. You rise and grab a blanket piled nearby. Its coarse wool thick and prickly. As you lift it, fibers cling to your gloves, tiny prickles on the surface. The blanket radiates a bone-minus chilling cold, the kind that seeps into your fingertips. You hold it close to the fire until a faint warmth emerges. Pioneers often slept layered beneath multiple blankets, quilts and patchwork quilts spiraled together. Some quilts were beautiful, stitched from scraps of old dresses or shirts. Others were simply sewn together from whatever fabric was at hand for warmth. You draped the blanket loosely over your shoulders and immediately stepped away from the fire. The chill instantly crept between your legs, reminding you that warmth had its limits. In this room, you imagined curling up on the straw mattress, wrapped in this layer of wool, knees pressed to your chest, your breath condensing into tiny clouds of moisture in the cold air. Even so, you would occasionally wake with a chill running down your spine. The wind slammed against the cabin again, making the wallboards creak. You paused to listen, the storm's tone now deeper and more powerful, moving toward the window. Your sleeve brushes the frosted glass. Outside, the blizzard has thickened, snowflakes whirling in a frenzied dance that makes you realize sleeping in such wilderness has never been about soft luxury, but simply about sustaining life. You turn to notice the wooden chest by the bed. Slowly lifting the lid, you find it stuffed with dry plant fibers, perhaps leftover stuffing from seasons past. You rummage through it, the dry hay slipping between your fingers with a faint rustle. This is frontier emergency bedding when the straw mattress grows too thin. Settlers tear open sacks and add more hay, if weather permitted. They'd patch it during winter otherwise. They endured. You sit on the mattress for a moment, testing its firmness. It doesn't yield to your weight, but pushes back, reminding you that comfort in the Old West was but a fleeting notion. You shift your body side to side, imagining drifting off to sleep in this swaying cabin, lulled by the wind's whispers. Perhaps weariness makes sleep easier, or perhaps fear makes it harder to come. You push yourself up with your hands and gaze at the woven rug beneath your feet, a rug beneath your boots. These rugs, often woven from scraps of old clothing into circles or ovals, block the chill from the cold floor while trapping warmth, adding a splash of color to rooms that rarely see it. You trace the surface with your toes. The fibers feel cold and stiff. Still, it's slightly warmer than the bare floor, and your toes welcome the contrast. You rise again and walk toward the fire. The chill makes your shoulders shiver slightly, and your breath comes out heavier. You add more wood to the flame, watching them grow brighter. Pioneers often sleep close to the fire within safe reach, sometimes huddling around it as a family, rotating positions through the night so everyone can enjoy the warmest spot. Your gaze drifts back to the straw mat. You take another step closer, slowly lowering yourself onto it. The straw creaks beneath your weight, the mat warping and shifting, forming a slight bulge beneath your shoulders. You shift, adjusting again and again until you find a spot that doesn't feel like lying on a pile of kindling. Closing your eyes for a moment, you inhale the room's scent: smoke, wool, dust, stale straw, and a hint of crisp pine. Even faintly comforting, it brings a sense of calm. Opening your eyes, you stare at the ceiling. The beams are rough and unfinished, fragments of bark still clinging to them. Snow slides or shifts occasionally, making soft thuds. You imagine the roof bending slightly under the weight. On nights like this, every sleeper must be extra sensitive to sounds above and around them. The cabin is sturdy yet fragile. You sit up, feet dangling over the edge, and catch sight of a small cloth bag tucked beneath the bedding. Curiosity draws you to pull it out and untie the knot. Dried herbs spill into your palm, perhaps someone's attempt to purify the air or soothe nerves. People used what they had: a few herbs, a cup of hot drink, stories shared by the hearth. These small rituals help them sleep, even when the outside world seemed cruel. You rose, stretched your arms, and returned to the fire. Warmth envelops your chest and cheeks, and you ponder how the pioneers layered blankets, hides, straw, and clothing to trap the heat. They had no electric heaters or soft mattresses, only resilient wisdom, clever solutions, and the hope that the storm would eventually pass. You circle the room once more, touching worn surfaces, listening to the storm's roar, imagining the weight of years lived here. Old West bedding was neither soft nor fancy, perhaps not always clean, but it held promise and rest. On nights like this, even the roughest mattress felt like a lifeline, drawn by the weighty feel of furrowed tales of frontier winters. You approach the stack of hides by the hearth. Lifting a layer, you're startled by its heaviness. It presses against your arm like a sleeping creature, its fur brushing your knuckles. Soft on the surface, yet thick within. It was born to endure the cold. The buffalo hide blanket was the frontier's modern insulation. Tonight, you finally understood why. The air inside was bone-minus chilling, your breath still forming a thin mist. The hide seemed to draw the cold from your palms, returning a warmer touch. You draped the blanket over your knees, examining its construction. Early settlers relied heavily on hides, especially buffalo, moose, or deer pelts, as cloth was scarce and costly until trade flourished. Frontier life laid bare buffalo hides lasted years. Though once so potent, many families used them as bedding all winter long. Throughout the cold season, this very cloak in your hands carried a faint earthy scent, a blend of smoked fur and aged frost. Your fingers traced the plush fibers, imagining nights when settlers curled within like insects in cocoons, hoping body heat would bounce back from the dense fibers. The fur not only warded off the cold, but also blocked the biting wind, muffling the creaking of walls and transforming a crude bed into a nearly cozy sanctuary. You lift a corner of the cloak to wrap around your shoulders, warmth flooding over you. Drawing a soft breath, you glance toward the door, picturing the pioneer trudging home through deep snow, hanging the cloak on a wooden peg, letting frost melt away amid the crackling fire. Many frontier accounts mention how furs left outdoors would stiffen like planks, often requiring people to beat them with sticks to soften them again. An old diary notes where curious-tailed children would occasionally drag frozen pelts across the snow as makeshift sleds, sliding until their parents scolded them for ruining the furs. Whether they truly damaged anything, or if the parents merely feared their adventures would wear out the finest coal miners' weather gear, this remains a point of debate among scholars studying daily life on the Great Plains. You gently shift the fur coat, feeling its contours hug your form, heavier than any modern blanket. It feels like a cherished friend leaning against you. This weight brings unexpected reassurance. You imagine if the hearth fired eyed out at night, leaving only your nose exposed to the cold. The layers of fur might be the sole barrier between warmth and frost. Gritting your teeth, you watch the snowstorm rage outside, the wind transforming into a relentless, prolonged force pounding against the walls. Hearing the snow shift, compact, and move, you pull the hides tighter, savoring their ability to trap heat, that warmth that should have long since dissipated. Pioneers often lay hides both beneath and atop their beds, knowing the icy floor steals body heat faster than the air. The lower hide acts as a makeshift mattress to block heat loss, while the upper fur seals it in like a winter envelope. You rise and walk toward the straw mattress, your cloak trailing behind like a shadow. As you spread it over the bed, the fur unfurls into thick, plush layers, instantly making the straw seem more inviting. You lie down carefully, letting the fur envelop your shoulders, chest, and legs. Warmth immediately gathers between your ribs and in the crooks of your arms. Soft, not fiery, yet deeply soothing. Close your eyes for a moment. Through the robe, you sense the faint creak of straw and the roughness of fabric. The robe softens everything, its warmth seeping through your clothes. You imagine lying like this while a storm threatens to tear the window panes from their hinges. Many pioneer families slept layered upon layered, sometimes under blankets, sometimes wrapped in quilts, sometimes stacked in coats, sometimes covered in duvets. The poorest families shared a single animal hide, taking turns each night for the warmest corner. Behind you, the hearth crackled, casting fleeting sparks across the ceiling. You sit up again, pulling the hide tighter around you. Your fingers trace its thick fur, noticing how it catches light, shifting from russet to deep gold to near minus black depending on the angle. You sense the presence of the creature that once roamed the plains, one of the few links connecting the settlers to the warmth bestowed by nature. You rise, loosely wrapping the cloak around yourself, pacing the log cabin floor. The pelt blocks the cold seeping at your feet, faintly carrying the scent of tallow and smoke, as if it still remembers being part of someone's winter routine. Old letters often mentioned how the pelt grew softer and more comfortable with time, absorbing the smoky scent of the hearth until it carried the essence of home. You turn to a small wooden chair and sit, cloak still wrapped around you. The warmth pressed against your back reminds you of how the settlers would pull their fur blankets close to the hearth for minutes before sleep, carrying warmth into their dreams. The primitive version of today's electric blankets. You lift a corner of the fur, feeling the undercoat trap your body heat. The storms unleashed another wave of gales against the cabin, making the entire structure hum. You pull your cloak tighter, your gaze sweeping over the roof beams, half-minus expecting snow to drift through the cracks. Nights like this test every seam, every rope, every nail. Sleep comes only when the body surrenders, not when the mind deems it safe. The cloak on your shoulders makes that surrender seem more possible. You rise again to inspect the room's edges, where cold gathers near the floor and low wooden beams, seeping in like an uninvited guest. You press your foot against a spot, feeling a faint draw, but tonight it felt almost dangerous. Perhaps a thick pelt draped over the low wall could block the fiercest assaults. You held your cloak against the gap for a moment, imagining how pioneers improvised insulation, rug sacks, quilts, and hides often served as windbreaks. You retrieve your cloak and wrap it tighter around yourself, the warmth now spreading more distinctly across your chest. You picture yourself layered in clothing, lying close to the hearth. Feet. Some families, it said, would heat stones in the fire, wrap them in cloth, and tuck them beneath their bedding. Others would lay hides directly on the hot rocks to warm themselves before sleep. This ancient practice stems from numerous indigenous traditions, though experts still debate which group first shared which methods. You curl back onto the edge of the mattress, the hide shielding you like a shield. You obsessively stroke the fur, imagining how many nights pioneers whispered legends beneath these layers. Tales of lost travelers, legends of wolves circling huts, distant relatives, journeys. These tales softened the edge of fear, opening doors to dream. The half fire flickered steadily as you sat still, cloak draped over your shoulders, breathing in the scent of the hides, a blend of earth and smoke, ancient and steadfast. Outside, the blizzard raged on, but within this cocoon of fur, you sensed a small, resilient sanctuary. In the storm, the people of the Old West never slept soundly, but such furs made the attempt possible. You finally rise, gently shaking out the cloak and laying it softly on the mattress, as if preparing to rest yourself. Let the storm rage. You now understand the oldest secret of frontier sleep survival is oft unwrapped in fur. You return to the hearth, drawn once more by its pulsing warmth, the only constant in this restless cabin. Logs glow orange at the center, their edges crumbling into soft fragments of embers. Kneeling, you hover your hands above the flames, pretending to stretch your limbs as the heat waves carry you into sleep. In the Old West, many families lived this way. The small hearth was not just a cooking fire, but a midnight guardian, the heart of the home, the one corner where the cold dared not tread. You move closer, pressing your knees against the uneven floor. Early settlers built fireplaces from whatever stones they could find, rough yet functional. A well-known fact of that era, many hearths were too shallow or wide, making sparks more likely to fly into the room. You lean down to examine the scorch marks around the fire pit and instantly understand why. A single misplaced ember could ignite a blanket or animal hide. The fire warmed the pioneers, yet kept them constantly on edge. You reach for the tongs leaning against the hearth, tap the logs, and sparks rain down, illuminating the beams as their crackle mingles with the wind's low murmur outside. You add another split log, forcing it into the glowing embers, and the flames greedily devour it. The winter hearth served a dual purpose, first filling the house with the scent of supper, then simmering low until dawn. Pioneers relied on the embers not only for warmth, but also for light. When storms raged as fiercely as this, stumbling in the dark was as perilous as stepping outside. You leaned back in your chair, imagining winter family gatherings. Parents often let children sit closest to the hearth, their small bodies curled like kittens around the warmest spot. Adults slept farther from the flames, willingly enduring the chill, for they bore the responsibility of tending the fire through the night. Some diaries record mothers waking early to adjust the fuel, quietly adding twigs to avoid disturbing the children. Less frequently mentioned frontier night minus watch customs suggest families sometimes took turns sleeping, ensuring one adult remained awake to stoke the fire if it began to die. Whether this was a widespread practice or a family minus specific adaptation during blizzards remains a topic of lively debate among cultural scholars. You stretch your legs toward the flames. Warmth seeps into your boots, softening the leather slightly. You lean back, clench your eyes for a moment, letting the crackling sound seep into your eardrum. Its rhythm steady and peaceful, almost hypnotic. Falling asleep this way is effortless, your cheeks warm, yet your spine shivers from the chill behind you. This uneven warmth bears the stamp of frontier life, too close to the fire, and your clothes risk scorching too far, and half your body grows numb. The cold devours everything, while the blankets struggle to guard your body heat. You catch a sideways glance at the simple ironware by the hearth, a frying pan, a small stew pot, a spoon worn black with use. These vessels once simmered stews that burned all night, their thick broth kept as warm as possible. You drew in a deep breath, almost tasting the lingering aroma of stewed beans and venison. Many families buried their pots in the embers, preserving the food until dawn. This saved fuel and labor, becoming a comfort in the deep night. You touch the hearth stones, warm but not hot. Pioneers often slept with their feet resting on stones warmed in the evening, which radiated slow heat all night like miniature suns beneath the bedding. You imagine draping a buffalo hide over your legs, toes lightly touching the stones. The instinct to draw warmth from the earth is humanity's deepest urge. The crackling fire snatches you from your thoughts as a spark streaks across the floor before dying out. You trace its vanishing path, remembering how many settlers dreaded backdrafts. A slight shift in wind could easily send smoke billowing backward. Some have written of nights when thick smoke filled the entire cabin, forcing everyone to crawl on their bellies to breathe. You breathe carefully, scanning the room. The chimney here seems sturdy enough, smoke rising clear and vanishing into the pitch minus black flue. You lean back into the chair again, arms loosely wrapped around your waist. The warmth is uneven but welcome. You glance toward the corner, where a streak of scorch marks climbs the wall, perhaps from flames that once lit too high, or a pot placed too close to the fire. These subtle traces tell the story of the inhabitants, their moments battling bitter, cold and scorching heat. Seeking balance, you rise and circle behind the fireplace, noticing the back wall feels colder than the front. The stone masonry traps heat, but also imprisons cold draughts. When the wind shifts, pressing your palm against the stone reveals a sudden chill. This biting contrast makes you understand why family always gathered around the hearth at night. Even with the fire roaring, the corners of the cottage remain near freezing. You picture yourself curled on the earthen rug, head toward the firelight, feet tucked into furs, watching the embers glow and flicker like breaths. How many had whispered prayers before sleep, hoping the flames would burn until dawn? Warmth was never a given, but earned through chopping, pulling, splitting, and stacking. To sleep warm, one must labor by day. Use it up straight again, stretching your shoulders and neck, almost feeling the sting of cold fabric against your throat and the stiffness of the coat. Drying by the fire, you draw in a deep breath, letting the smoky scent sink into your lungs. The warmth eases the stiffness in your hips, palms, and jaw. You imagine the quiet spreading, that stillness drifting toward drowsiness, the solace treasured by frontier folk in the long storm. The fire's glow dimmed, its light becoming. You stoke the embers once more, watching the flames rise and noting their shifting shadows across the room. Each flicker altered the cabin's outline, making the walls seem to move. In such darkness, illusions were common. Some pioneers swore they saw figures drifting in the firelight, vanishing when met with direct gaze. Is this born of fear, exhaustion, or the soul's attempt to fill the void? Sociologists studying frontier psychology often ponder this question. You slide your boots closer to the fire as the blizzard hurl outside grows fiercer, threatening to drown out the crackling hearth. Use it quietly, letting the heat wash over your back, imagining the family who once lived here, gathered around this very fire, their breath mingling, the flames their guardian. You can almost hear the children's sleepy murmurs, the soft clink of pot lids, the rustle of blankets as they curl up for warmth. Slowly, you rise, arms stretched high. The fire's lingering warmth still clings to your skin. Even as the cold wind brushes your neck, you turn back toward the flames, letting the last warmth caress your cheeks. This fire once marked the boundary between survival and extinction, the silent companions, sustaining life through the watcher's long nights of the world's devouring darkness. The flames continued to sing the heartbeat of the log cabin. Watching them pulse, you felt you could rest here too, protected by the firelight. You stepped away from its lingering glow into the cabin's more open space, imagining how the family would settle down for the night during the storm. The moment you step away from the hearth, the chill strikes like sharp fingers, and you hug your arms close. Surely the posture pioneers adopted when hurrying home between labors. Tonight makes you understand that in the Old West, solitude was seldom a choice. Warmth was a communal endeavor. You picture mattresses spread across the floor, stacks of dry firewood against the walls, coarse cotton quilts draped over straw mattresses. Frontier homes were often cramped, so sleeping huddled together was commonplace. Bodies and bedding intertwined into a mass of undulating breaths. The frontier diary often mentions on cold nights, children would burrow into adults' arms, becoming living heaters. Thinking of such scenes, you smiled softly. The cold outside might be cruel, but human warmth always blunted its edge. You crouched beside the straw mattress, imagining several people sleeping together. The straw creaked beneath your weight. You envision how cramped the space would be with 3, 4, or even 5 people lying side by side. Running your hand over the animal hides laid out earlier, you ponder the warmth generated by layered bodies. Families often place the youngest child at the warmest center, adults curling into a protective circle around them. An arrangement both loving and wise. You sit on the floor, eyes closed for a moment, trying to sense others' presence. The storm lashes violently against the walls, shaking the house. The empty cabin feels vast, yet you almost perceive the shapes around you, imagining your parents faint breathing in sleep, children murmuring in their dreams, perhaps even a traveler spending the night in the corner by the hearth. Frontier kindness almost demanded sharing space, especially in winter, where refusing shelter to travelers in a blizzard was considered unkind. You touch the cold floor, the chill seeping through your gloves. Pioneers often unlay multiple layers of furs or thick bedding on sleeping platforms, and even livestock blankets were brought indoors. Brief, neat entries in several homestead journals reveal that some families would tuck dogs into bedding at night, not merely out of affection, but because the animal's warmth was simply too precious. Whether this was a widespread practice or unique to certain households remains a point of scholarly debate, as most diaries only mention animals in the context of labor. You rise, mimicking the motions of making a bed, pulling out a fur pelt here, shifting quilts there, arranging the bedding as if building a nest. The lingering warmth of the hearth brushes your palm, and in that instant you grasp the profound solace of shared warmth. Sleeping alone in such wilderness borders on peril, shared warmth signifies shared safety. You lie back down, now imagining another's shoulder pressed against yours, feet buried beneath layers of blankets. Family members learn to synchronize their breathing, to move without waking others, to silently adjust the bedding when cold winds pierce through walls. You inhaled deeply, sensing the mingling of smoke, wool, and earth. The wind thunders against the walls, making the log cabin floor tremble slightly. You glance toward the door. Pioneers often reinforced it with beams during blizzards, not for lurking enemies, but because the wind could rattle the latch loose. You imagine the door's thudding slam, waking everyone, whispers carrying worried questions. Then bodies join tighter until the shaking subsides. Lying back, you gaze at the rafters. When several sleep in one room, warmth rises swiftly. The air near the ceiling is surprisingly balmy, while the floor remains bone-minus chilling. Your fingertips brush your arm, touching the fur where skin grows warm. Your own body heat pools beneath layers, growing fiercer yet lower. You think of how, when blizzards last 3 days or longer, this closeness fosters emotional resonance. Sleep becomes a collective ritual, with people sharing stories before bed, humming songs, or reminiscing about home. A few pioneer letters record tender moments. They established sleeping rotations, letting siblings take turns by the hearth. Whether this was for fairness or necessity, different accounts vary, but it shows how meticulously they planned even their nights. You curled sideways, pulling the animal hide up to your chin, feeling its weight press against your ribs. You imagined another person shifting beside you, an elbow lightly touching your arm, their blanket draped over your shoulder. Life in the Old West had long erased the concept of personal space during winter. People simply shifted positions naturally, a cold draft across your necks, ending a shiver through you. You turned your head and saw a narrow gap between two logs, cold air seeping through. Steady pioneers would likely have stuffed such gaps with animal hides or folded quilts. You rose to mimic that action, gently pushing the hide back into place, the chill easing slightly. You imagine someone waking in the dead of night, half-minus asleep, yet instinctively guarding this cluster of sleepers. Performing the same task, you return to your mattress, lying down as the air hums with a silent buzz, the storm taking a brief respite before its next assault. You feel yourself sinking into the identity of a frontier sleeper. You imagine someone holding your hand beneath the blankets as thunder rumbles overhead. For families far from town, storms always bring a mix of fear and connection. They remind people how fragile life is, and how important others are. You exhale slowly, your warm breath condensing on the bedding. Obscure local cultural details suggest some families believe warmth transfers better through touch, especially when everyone maintains steady breathing. Whether this stems from science or comforting belief remains unclear. Modern scholars disagree, particularly in the Old West, where folklore and survival wisdom often blend seamlessly. You stretch your legs, the firm mattresses' layered folds brushing your skin. Your shoulder blades ache from the mattress's protrusions, but the thick fur's support eases the discomfort. The imagined presence of fur sleepers brings a quiet reassurance. You can almost hear their breaths, almost sense their warmth radiating in the darkness. Behind you, the hearth crackles once more. You sit up slowly. This crowd huddled together isn't just to endure the long night. It's a nightly reminder that in this perilous frontier, you are not alone. Shared warmth means shared burdens, shared fears, shared triumph. When the storm tried to tear the world apart at night, the simple act of leaning on another's warmth was enough to ward off danger. You rose from your bedding and draped a beast hide over your shoulders. The storm roared again, louder than before, but you felt calmer. You had seen frontier families band together against the blizzard, huddling close, trusting in meager supplies, trusting each other more. Sleep in the Old West, warding off the cold, was a communal endeavor. Tonight you finally grasp when no one faced it alone. You move toward the far wall, where wind whistles through cracks, cold seeping in with ruthless confidence. Each gust plunges the room's temperature, and you understand why pioneers resorted to what modern eyes see as primitive, deliberately piling snow walls against the exterior walls. You press your palm against the icy window pane. Frost instantly stings your skin, reminding you that, in this wilderness, every tool is precious, even those nature bestows with brutal force. You imagine stepping outside for a moment, facing the howling white vortex where snow lashes your cheeks and the cold wind tears at your clothes. Yet amidst this chaos, you kneel down and begin shoveling snow by hand, piling it to cabin walls to build an icy insulating barrier. Frontier weather records consistently reveal tightly packed snow lots in heat remarkably well. Long before settlers arrived, indigenous peoples understood this principle, often deliberately inked snow into their winter dwellings, molded into walls, or buried beneath the floor. Settlers adopted this method out of necessity, not desire. You step back from the window, surveying the cabin. As you imagine snow piled up to the window sills outside, the snow presses inward, sealing cracks, slowing the cold wind's advance, and muffling the storm's roar. You exhale slowly, almost tasting the chill which should be seeping through the door crack. The thought of snow as an ally feels strange. The image of a young pioneer flashes through your mind, perhaps a teenager, urged by his parents to pile snow against the walls during a raging blizzard. He might have grumbled in confusion, why add more snow on a night already filled with despair? You trace the coldest lower beam. Outside, snow blankets the cabin like a thick quilt, trapping still air. It mirrors the igloo principle, a little minus known frontier wisdom, glimpsed in scattered letters where families deliberately built shoulder-minus high snow walls to block the wind. Snow's insulation is so potent, indoor temperatures actually rise several degrees. Whether this method originated from practical testing or observation remains unclear. Land experts still study which regions widely adopt it, and which resist it out of fear of collapse. You crouch by the wall, imagining the snow clinging to it like a shield. Your fingertips sense the faintest chill seeking through, not enough to freeze you, yet enough to keep you tossing and turning through this bitter night. In such bitter cold, each breath steals warmth from your lungs. You lift your eyes to the hearth, watching the crackling flames, knowing that even the slightest barrier against drafts is precious. Snow, absurd as it seems, determines whether you curl in agony or find enough warmth for shallow sleep. You rise again, rubbing your hands together, imagining yourself a pioneer in the blizzard, shovel in hand or bare-handed, pushing the snow back into place. The wind howls like punishment, each movement coating your lashes with snowflakes. The cold bites like hungry wolves, yet you keep moving, knowing the cabin walls are thin, the night low. If the fired eyes, those few inches of packs, no might be the last barrier between your family and frostbite. You turn to examine the doorframe, where deep snow could seal the bottom gap. Pioneers often stuffed cloth or moss into all cracks, but blizzards demanded more. You picture someone packing snow against the door with their boots, pressing it tight until only the top hinges remained exposed. A winter journal from Dakota recounts a simple tale during a blizzard. A pioneer deliberately buried half-foot or in snow, only to dig it out again the next day. Was this common practice, or the eccentric whim of a daring pioneer? It remains a topic of lively debate among local scholars, studying how newcomers adapted to the cultural differences of prairie life. You cross the room, touch the wall once more, and close your eyes, As snow piles outside, the interior grows ever quieter, its weight swallowing sound, replacing the howl of wind. You hear only a low, muffled rumble, as if the outside world has pulled a blanket over its head. You imagine yourself lying on a straw mattress, wrapped in animal hides, listening to the storm's soft murmur rather than its fury. What immense relief for the soul. Though winter storms are terrifying, when the noise subsides, sleep is within reach. You walk to the window, sketching the scene outside more clearly, snow-piled waist minus high, glass glistening faintly in moonlight. Each time the blizzard eases, the world grows darker, quieter, more enclosed. You press your palm against the window again. The chill remains bone minus deep, but you imagine how unbearable it would be without the snow weighing down the outer wooden beams. The drifts from a makeshift cave, a frozen miniature fortress. You step away from the window and crouch in the corner, picturing yourself stuffing animal hides into the inner crevices. People always find 1,000 ways. Snow outside, blankets inside, nails along the edges, to temporarily block those creeping fingers of cold. Just to block those creeping fingers of cold, you draw in a deep breath, noticing the air near the floor grows heavier. The fire warms the room and evenly you imagine the heat struggling upward, only to be swallowed by the draft. The snow outside the window once slowed this heat's escape. As you cross the cabin, imagine it half minus buried, the roof covered by feet of snow, the walls pressed by drifts. The door nearly vanished. Pioneers sometimes feared the snow would crush their homes, a real dread, yet many still took the risk, knowing full well that cold was the closer enemy. In one Illinois pioneer's winter tale, he awoke to find the cabin nearly invisible from outside, the door sealed shut by snow whipped up by the storm. The drifts were so high the family had to dig a tunnel to escape. Whether this story is exaggerated or true remains a point of contention among those who pass it down. As you compare old records, you kneel by the hearth once more, letting the warmth seep into your bones. You imagine how the snow transforms the cabin's atmosphere. Warmer, quieter, dimmer, more cave minus like than house. You can almost hear the snowstorm's low growl instead of its roar. Inside, it becomes a cocoon, a borrowed pocket of warmth in a cruel world, slowly rising. Your palm traces the wood's grain as you picture, adding the final touches. A piece of animal hide nailed here, a blanket laid there. Outside, deep snow buries the world, and the cabin has transformed from a fragile wooden box into a winter sanctuary shaped by necessity and instinct. As you picture yourself lying once more upon the straw mattress, letting your natural self close its eyes for a moment, you listen to the whisper of the blizzard. The wind cannot fully invade this land. The ancient West demands wisdom from those who call it home. And tonight you witness how pioneers draw strength from the very nature that seeks to freeze them. Open your eyes and survey this sturdy room. Though the storm rages outside, the world within feels less bitterly cold. As you approach the door, the wind cuts across the floor like a blade, reminding you that nightfall on the frontier is no gentle transition. It is a list, a ritual, a test. You pause, imagining the last tasks the settlers hurried to complete before daring to lie down. When the storm prowls outside the windows, sleep is no simple act. It is earned through labor, preparation, and the daily struggle against this land that takes such delight in reminding humanity of its insignificance. You reach for the wooden bolt beside the doorframe. Pioneers often reinforced latches with these against the gales, and slide it into place. Listen to its dull thud as it locks the door. That sound alone was enough to soothe many pioneers. Sealing the entrance meant the house was prepared for the night, or as prepared as it could be. The Pioneer Household Manual clearly states during blizzard, settlers must repeatedly check doors and windows, as wooden wedge bolts often loosen when walls shift under pressure. You gently rock the door. It doesn't budge, but the feeling is unsettling. You crouch down, stuffing a hide dragged from the bed's corner into the gap beneath the door. The chill is instantly blocked. The cold wind tries to penetrate, but to no avail. You press the hide firmly, imagining someone repeating this action every winter night, dragging the hide from the bed's corner to stuff the gap. The fur instantly blocked the chill. The cold air tried to penetrate but failed. You breathe lightly as you pack the fur down, imagining someone repeating this action every winter night. Ordinary tasks become extraordinary when survival depends on them. You rise and survey the small room, the flickering fire casting slender shadows on the walls. Pioneers tended the hearth with care before sleep, adding wood with precise measure enough to keep the embers dancing, yet not so much that the flames roared while everyone rested. Kneeling by the hearth, you gently nudge the logs, adjusting the fire until it settles into a steady, constant glow. Old diaries often record adults staring into the flames until their eyes burned, refusing to sleep until the hearth was assuredly stable, for even a single spark landing on fur could change everything. You rise again and walk to the window, where frost spreads across the glass like delicate white branches, pressing your palm against the ice. A piercing chill instantly seizes you. Pioneers routinely scraped frost before bed to ensure the ice beneath the window panes held no cracks or gaps. A peculiar account from an Ohio farm describes the custom of tapping loose frost with the back of a spoon. Whether a common practice or a family tradition remains unknown, yet it underscores the importance of these meticulous checks. You turn toward the long pole leaning against the wall, hoisting it to gaze at the rafters. Snowflake steps awfully against the shingles. Some households, especially those with sod roofs, use poles to knock snow from their peaks, preventing nighttime collapses. Mimicking this, you tap the beam above your head. Snowflakes drift down, glinting briefly in the firelight. The falling snow inside reminds you how fragile these simple structures are when blizzards rage for days. You walk to the neatly stacked wood pile beside the hearth, your fingers gliding over the split logs. Pioneers always checked fuel reserves before bed. Running out mid-minus blizzard meant braving the freezing cold to climb onto the roof for more wood, a risk no one wanted to take. Frontier records also reveal a little minus known trick many families kept a night pile. Carefully selected dry wood stacked to burn slowly. Rising in the middle of a blizzard to chop wood meant plunging into the biting cold, a risk no one would take. Frontier records reveal another little minus known trick. Many families would set aside a nighttime wood pile, carefully selecting dry logs to stack in small piles, ensuring a slow, steady burn. Though regional variations make it hard to confirm if every household practiced this, it seems remarkably wise in hindsight. You take a few logs from the pile near the stove, within easy reach, then lift the copper kettle from the stone hearth, feeling its lingering warmth. Hot water was precious at night. Imagine filling the kettle at dusk, steam rising as the family prepares for bed. A warm drink soothes parched throats, offering a moment of stillness. As the storm rattles the cottage, you gently set the kettle down and move toward the wall, groaning under the fiercest wind pressure. Pressure against the wooden beam, the chill seeps through the wood, a low hum, as if the storm itself is warning. You step back, scanning for cracks, noticing a narrow slit beside the beam. You reach in, stuffing a cloth strip into the gap, feeling it wedged tightly. Such small tasks fill the last moments before sleep. The pioneer's care, half habit, half fear. You turn toward the heart of the house, listening for the wind's next shift, the crackle of the hearth fire, the groan of the door, the creak of snow weighing down the roof. You imagine a family pausing every few minutes, identifying these sounds, debating whether to move their beds away from the walls or lay another animal hide over the cracks. Sleep requires preparation, but more so courage. You approach the small loft ladder. Many frontier families sleep in the attic during winter, where warm air rises and gathers. Climbing a few steps, the temperature shift is immediate. The air near the ceiling is warmer and gentler. Breathing easier, you picture the children being sent up first, small hands gripping the same rungs, voices rising and falling beneath the blankets. Some families would pack embers into metal containers to avoid waking frozen in the night. You pause on the ladder, imagining the faint rustle of quilts and the occasional giggle escaping a child, always stifled by a parent's shush before it fully surfaces. You climb back down to the hut center, where the fires glowed inms, casting a faint red hue on your hands. You notice the shadows trembling, shaped by the wind's erratic gusts. You understand how the pioneers read these shadows. A flicker might signal strengthening winds, a sudden surge of smoke perhaps foretelling a storm shift. Evening chores were not just tasks, but the front line of conversation with the weather. You kneel by the hearth once more, adding the final small log. You watch as the flames slowly and gently wrap around it. Warmth brushes your cheeks, while chill seeps into your spine. A contrast growing sharper by the minute, reminding you to move cautiously. Double minus, checking for oversights. You circle the cabin slowly, probing the door, tapping the walls, glancing at the beams. Your hand brushes the bedding, smoothing the folds as if expecting someone to follow. Silence drapes the room like gauze, lingering only for a moment. The work is done. The storm still rages, but the cabin stands ready. You sit on the edge of the storm mattress, exhaling a long breath. The weight of night gathers, yet you feel the pulse of safety. A peace earned each evening by the settlers through labor and vigilance. Only when all checks are complete, doors and windows sealed, the hearth fire adjusted, and warmth filling the room, do they permit themselves to sink into the bedding and hopes. Drifting into deep sleep, you feel the same shift. The work done, the storm still ravenous, but the cabin fortified. You sit still for a moment, feeling the storm's weight press against the walls, when another sound slips into your ears, a howl in the distance. Not the wind, but a deeper, wilder snarl. You rise slowly, approaching the door with the caution shared by many pioneers on nights like this. Hunters never wait for fair weather, in fact. Storms sometimes embolden them. The scent of animals, the faint flicker of firelight, the crude structures half-minus buried in snow, all draw attention from the dark edges of the prairie. You pressed your hand against the rough wooden door to listen. The howling faded, replaced by the sharp whistling of the wind whipping around the corners of the cabin. But danger lingered. Wolves, coyotes, even the occasional mountain lion ventured near frontier homesteads in the depths of winter, seeking anything desperate enough to leave its shelter. A well-known fact from Frontier Chronicles explains why families oft unkept watch during blizzards, not only to tend the fire, but also to guard against animals probing the walls or sneaking toward the barn. You imagine sitting by the window, gazing out at the swirling white world, the unease of not knowing what might be moving, the watch, not merely to tend the hearth, but to guard against beasts probing walls or creeping toward the barn. You picture the unease of gazing from the window, peering through the swirling white world, that unseen movement. As you slowly retreat, you scan the shadows within the cabin. Night watch guards not only guard against beasts, but also discern sounds, interpret storm omens, observe whether the roof sags, window shutters rattle, or the hearth fire backfires. You imagine switching between wakefulness and drowsiness every few hours, as was the norm for adults during storms that raged all night. Not out of fear, but necessity. Seated in the chair by the hearth, you stare at the frost patterns dancing on the window panes, your ears straining the wind for more howls, more signs of movement. Wood crackles, the roof sighs heavily, the fire sparks and leaps. Then, another low, rumbling murmur, as if something breathes along the walls. Your body instinctively tenses, though you know it might just be the wind bending the treetops. Pioneers often misinterpret sounds. The Kansas Pioneer Diary records a peculiar account. One night, a family lay awake all night. Certain wolves were circling their cabin, only to discover at dawn the noise came from snow sliding off the roof. Whether this memory was exaggerated or true remains a point of contention among local storytellers to this day. You rise again and approach the window, careful not to disturb the fragile frost patterns. With your fingertip, you clear a small patch of ice to peer outside. Staring out the window, endless white snowflakes violently strike the glass, casting short shadows that seem to flicker with faint light. Pressing close to the windowsill, your heart races as you imagine yourself watching the tree light, waiting for the glint of eyes. The wind winds again, and you suddenly understand those pioneers, isolated with no neighbors, faced the long night with unimaginable courage, relying only on thin wooden walls and the art of listening. No neighbors to call for help, No patrols to warn them. Only ears that could distinguish the rustle of branches from the stealth of hunters, the crack of ice from the stomp of hooves, the stillness of peace from the lurking of shadows. You stepped away from the window, pulling your coat tighter, imagining your parents sitting at the tree line, waiting for the glint of eyes. The wind wailed again, and you suddenly understood back then. The pioneers faced the long night with unimaginable courage, surrounded by no neighbors, relying only on thin, wooden walls and the art of listening. No neighbors to call for help, no patrols to warn them. Only those ears that could distinguish the rustle of branches from the stealth of hunters, the crack of ice from the thud of hooves, the stillness of peace from the lurking shadows. You step back from the window, pulling your coat tighter. You imagine your parents sitting here, distinguishing between the rustle of a prowling hunter and the crack of frozen wood, between the silence that signifies peace and the silence that foretells the approach of prey. You retreat from the window, pulling your coat tighter. You imagine that where you stand now, your father or mother once stood, lantern in hand, keeping watch while everyone else slept. The firelight slows your heartbeat as you curl at the edge of the straw mat, listening. A chill brushes your ankles, startling you awake. You adjust the animal hide blocking the doorway and check the window latch once more. Pioneers often pace indoors, circling in the dim halo of light, checking every weak spot. You kneel by the hearth, palms turned toward the warmth. The firelight dances across the room, illuminating corners where shadows gather and retreat. You imagine someone keeping watch here tonight, sitting in the same spot, warming their hands while peering through the window at passing shadows. Perhaps a small family takes turns on watch, whispering to avoid waking the children revelers trapped in the blizzard fight sleep with every breath, knowing deep slumber could invite danger. You rise again, scanning the rafters as the wind shakes the roof once more. In the storm, each breath is a battle against sleep, knowing slumber might invite danger. You rise again, scanning the rafters. The wind rattles the rafters again, and you imagine parents pausing to identify the sound. Loose shingles, shifting snow, or something treading upon the roof. Winter storms distort reality, sound waves traveling in strange ways. A local chronicle notes an obscure night torch experience. Frozen air amplifies distant sounds, making wolves howling on the hillside seem as if they were right outside the door. Whether this phenomenon stems from acoustic illusion or imagination remains a topic land experts still relish discussing. You approach the small wooden ladder leading to the loft. Pioneers often station night watch here to overlook activity inside and outside the window. Climbing a few steps and looking down, the cabin appears smaller from above, yet safer and easier to defend. You imagine your mother rocking gently in the chair here, eyes fixed on the fire, is alert to every sound. Perhaps she held a tin cup of warm soup, or murmured prayers amid the howling wind. You descend again, toes tapping the cold floor, picking up the heavy iron by the hearth. Not a weapon, but in the Old West, anything within reach could serve as protection. You set the iron down gently and listen again. The wind surges, filling the cabin with a long, deep breath that fades into a low, mournful wail. You exhale slowly. The dangers outside, real or imagined, force the pioneer to sleep with vigilance. Only when the storm eases do you approach the door once more, your palm pressed against the wood. You imagine the tremor of claws treading fresh snow, the scent of animals from nearby pens carried on the cold wind, luring hungry hunters. You picture night watchmen gripping lanterns, hesitating between peering through windows or staying still, most times choosing to stay put, trusting the walls would hold until dawn. You step back, your shoulders gradually relaxing. The storm continues its roar, punctuated by faint sounds, like distant dog barks swallowed by the wind. You strain to discern their rhythm, realizing the noise might merely be branches clashing or rafters settling. Life on the frontier demands a strange blend of caution and resilience. You must respond without haste, listen without presumption, remain alert in the darkness without losing your mind. You return to sit beside the mattress, letting the tension in your muscles gradually ease. You imagine the moment when the first watchman declares the cabin safe, and your family can finally sleep together in one bed. Perhaps they whisper goodnight. Perhaps they fall silent, leaving only the night watchman leaning against the wall, wrapped in a blanket, watching the hearth-fire's breath. You slowly lie down, your head sinking into the uneven straw mattress. The chill beside you grows more biting as your body warms slightly. You pull the animal hide over your chest and close your eyes. The storm still rages outside, but the cabin stands as solid as a mountain. In this moment, you finally grasp the purpose of the night watch. It is not merely a necessity for survival, but a solace for the soul. Knowing someone keeps vigil through the night allows everyone else to sleep soundly. You draw in a slow breath, feeling the cabin's pulse, the crackling fire, the howling wind, and the night watcher within you listening. Consciousness drifts between wakefulness and haze, the state often shared by settlers enduring long blizzards. Though the storm rages, danger has not yet struck. The night watcher guards you. You shift on the straw mattress, pulling the animal hide closer to your chest. Your thoughts drift to the youngest sleepers on the frontier, the children. You imagine their wide eyes every time the storm growls beneath the cabin, casting long shadows from the fire across the walls. You see them clutching tattered drag dolls or carved wooden horses, trembling not from cold, but from the roar of wind across the plains. Slowly sitting up, your spine brushing against the coarse blanket, you picture adults drawing their children close. Parents in the Old West knew well that night held threats distinct from hunger and toil. Pioneer letters recount how parents diverted children's storm fears with lullabies and gentle tales, not of soft meadows or twinkling stars, but melodies rooted in comfort and warmth, carrying the promise of dawn. Those brief, repetitive tunes soothed far more than they entertained. You kneel beside the mattress, imagining your mother humming softly by the hearth, her voice softening the roar outside the window, its pitch carrying the weight of reassurance. The child curled beneath the buffalo hide blanket, tiny hands clutching the fur, listening intently not just to the song, but to the rhythm of the words "you are safe." You could almost hear the deep, steady rhythm blending with the crackle of burning wood, rising to the hearth. You picture the warm glow on children's faces, firelight dancing in their eyes, churning fear into wonder. Some families replace songs with stories, tales that don't shy away from darkness but give it new meaning. You kneel, holding your hands close to the firelight, pondering how these tales have been passed down through generations. A collection of frontier folklore includes a curious tale, parents recounting legends of winter spirits roaming outside to guard children's sleep. Whether this stems from parenting wisdom or genuine belief is now lost to history. Cultural scholars still debate the balance of instruction and superstition in such winter custom. You tiptoe to peer up the attic stairs, where many children nestle in the warmest corners. Imagine them curled tight beneath quilts patched from old clothes and scrap, whispering tales of midnight noises beneath their tattered dresses. Some children feign bravery, pretending to love the fury of the blizzard. Others bury their faces in their quilts as the wind lashes fiercely against the wooden house. You climb a few steps up the ladder, hearing the crackling of the fire, as if announcing your presence in a place of peace. Curled up in quilts made from old shirt and skirt fabric, the night whispered of wind and thunder. Some children feigning bravery, claiming to love the storm's fury. Others burying their faces in the quilts as the cold wind slammed against the log cabin. You pause on the ladder, warmth rising up your shoulders. Closing your eyes, you imagine siblings sharing down old cattle pillows, listening to the soft coughs, faint whimpers, and rustling quilts below. These ordinary sounds of stillness, they are less alone. You could almost feel the heavy, sleepy bodies of children leaning unconsciously against each other as dreams began to take shape. You descended again, landing lightly on the cool floor. Crossing the room, you crouched by the window, hearing the wind scrape against the shutters. Children often fear these scratches, imagining claws or ghosts or giants walking through snowdrift. Pressing your palm against the icy windowsill, you finally understand why parents strive so hard to mask these sounds with lullabies and stories. The frontier cannot block out sound. The night has its own voice, and it is loud. You move to the window and sit on the stacked blankets. The scent of smoke and wool wraps around you like memory. You picture children curled in their mother's arms, too anxious to sleep alone. Many families cherish this closeness, even in cramped spaces. Even pressed tightly together, the warmth of intimacy was worth having. Old family letters often mention the comfort of children nestling against brothers or parents during difficult nights. This was not a sign of cowardice, but simply the norm of life in a log cabin. You stretch your legs against the cold, letting the warmth of the hearth reach your toes, imagining your father telling stories of spring, green grass reviving, birds nesting in the rafters. Many prairie diaries record these tender details, parents softly describing sunlit scenes to lull children to sleep. Scholars still debate whether these are memory fragments or imagined glimmers, viewing them as a blend of coping strategies and oral tradition. You rise and pace to the room, pressing your hand against the wooden beam. Imagine a child waking in the night, softly crying from cold seeping through blankets or startled by strange sound. Parents rise without a word, layering on clothes, checking the fire, whispering soothing words. Frontier life demands much of adults, yet nighttime care remains their heaviest burden. Your heart tightens. Storms do not cease for fatigue, nor do the duties of nurturing. You move toward the mattress, bending over once more, palm pressed against the animal hide. You imagine the child nestled beside you, breath soft, small body trembling faintly in the wind's whispers. You pull the hide up to your chin, feeling its weighty thickness. To a child, this weight must be magic, a shield, a promise. The fire crackles again, sparks leaping into the gloom. You smile faintly, imagining parents lowering their voices, striving to stay gentle so as not to disturb the young. In a world fraught with danger, sleep is one of the few moments when children can find peace. You gaze up at the rafters as the storm howls in the cabin creaked. Yet, a quiet calm settles over you. The peace pioneers create for their families touch that conveys warmth, presence that brings safety, songs that nurture tranquility. You exhale slowly, letting the feeling settle. Frontier nights are never gentle, but within these walls, parents build small havens for their children, with stories, lullabies, tight embraces, and the soft rhythm of shared breaths. The storm still prowls outside, but in the quiet center of this room, you finally understand that even the smallest frontier sleeper can rest. You sit on the edge of the straw mat for a moment, letting the fur shawl slip lightly from your shoulders, breathing in the faint smoky scent. Outside the window, the storm no longer roars but exhales long, weary gusts, as if the night itself has finally exhausted its strength. You rise slowly and walk to the window. Frost feathers still cling thickly to the glass, but the light filtering through them carries a new hue, a pale gold, hinting that the storm's fiercest part has finally begun to ease. You wipe a small circle clear with your sleeve, and the sight outside the cabin is almost dazzling. Fresh snow glitters in the soft morning light, every surface sparkling as if dusted with glass powder. The world fell into a sacred stillness. You drew a deep breath, feeling the cold air quiver in your lungs. Pioneer accounts often mentioned it. The first clay morning after a long blizzard always brought a profound emotional release, as if the earth and the soul regained their breath simultaneously. The pioneers wrote of stepping outside to find the world transformed, danger still present, yet beauty laid bare. You turn toward the hearth, where flames now burn fiercer from earlier stoking, splashing warm hues across the room's walls. Crouching low, you draw your hands close to the fire, imagining the settlers did the same, murmuring quiet thanks to the flames. In the firelight, you recount last night's fears, the huddled sleep, the restless dreams. As warmth spreads through your fingertips, those unease begins to fade. The rarely mentioned vigil scenes in frontier memoirs describe how, after a blizzard, families often fell into a brief morning silence, as if afraid to shatter the fragile calm frozen in place after the storm's retreat. Was this custom of silence widespread, or confined to certain families? It remains a gentle curiosity for scholars studying the emotional rhythms of the frontier. You rise and walk toward the door, hesitating a moment before pressing the latch, touching it. The wooden door is cool, but no longer icy. You listen. The sounds outside have changed. The wind still blows, but its fury has softened. Snow no longer pounds the walls like a madman's drumbeat instead. It drifts down like a soft, thin blanket from the roof, occasionally collapsing with a muffled thud. These sounds carry a strange comfort, signaling the storm's retreat. You press your shoulder against the door, initially resisted by the weight of accumulated snow. With a push, the door creaks open, a sliver of fresh cold air slicing into the cabin like a blade. You inhale sharply. The breath is crisp and biting, invigorating, almost sweet. You imagine a scene of pioneers stepping out of their tent for the first time, blinking in the glare, boots sinking deep into worn snow. Trivia about toy wagon. Ministerial families recount children diving into snowdrifts after blizzards, purely to release spent -up energy. Was this common catharsis or rare delight? Though debated, the image warms you. You leave the door ajar and pace back to the bedding. As you stroke the straw mattress, you recall how people would shake out their bedding after storms to ward off dampness and mildew, lifting the animal hides to drape them over the beams for drying. You almost hear the rustling of morning chores, children clattering spoons and pots, someone stretching sore limbs by the hearth. You sit back on the mattress, letting your imagination step outside. Sunlight blindingly glints off the snow, its harsh reflection stinging your eyes. The crisp scent of pine drifts from the woods, the sound of ice crystals melting and dripping in the sun. You picture the footprints leading from the barn to the cottage, traces half-line us deep in the blizzard, soon to be reshaped by new footsteps when morning light returns. You rise and walk to the window, scraping away another patch of frost to gaze upon the shifting world. The earth appears pristine, almost innocent, yet this serene beauty conceals the labor ahead. Roofs to clear, livestock to check, supplies to tend. The chill remains deadly, yet the faint sunlight brings a precious gift, the dawn of hope. You draw a deep breath and step back, and the cabin suddenly feels warm, not because the temperature has risen, but because your spirit has been freed. After the storm passes, frontier dwellers must remain vigilant, but when the snow and wind subside, people can rediscover themselves conversing in ordinary tones, smiling at each other without the shadow of fear, weary minds and thoughts returning to their rhythm. You return to the hearth and kneel, stoking the fire one last time. Sparks fly like stars, and you imagine the pioneers repeating this motion countless winter mornings, embracing warmth again after nights of doubt. Closing your eyes, you picture stepping outside into the sunlight, letting the cold sting your cheeks until the day's warmth envelops you. You straighten and survey the cabin. The storm's fury is now a distant memory, replaced by the soft light of a new day, and the certainty that life endures, despite the night's attempts to claim it all. Snow may blanket the earth, but dawn awakens the soul. Tonight's memories linger. The fear, the cold, the shaking walls, the restless dreams. Yet they belong to yesterday. Today carries a different story, the quiet joy of weathering the storm, the slow return of warmth, and the certainty that even the harshest night will yield to gentle light. You stand by the open door, letting the chill brush your face before closing it again to lock in the warmth. The storm has ceased, retreating to bring a new rhythm to the cottage. You turn slowly, gazing at the familiar space, the hearth fire, the loft stairs, the hanging animal hides, and beneath it all, you sense something different, something quieter than survival, a need belonging to the body itself. For even when danger has passed, sleep remains essential. The cabin must remain warm enough for rest, and its occupant must reclaim the deep, healing sleep, not the tense, floating kind of a stormy night. You approach the bedding, lie down slowly, pressing your palms into the straw, flattened slightly by the long night. You comb the straw with your fingertips, gently patting it to fluff it up, imagining the pioneer's daily morning routine. The household ledger records a constant truth after every stormy night. The bed must be repaired, compacted straw, shifted hides, seeping cold. Family members always mend everything before the daylight rest. For restoring strength, is as vital as holding on to survival. You lie down slowly, pulling the animal hide over your chest. The warmth from the campfire gently caresses your cheek, warming your forehead first before spreading to your cheekbones. You exhale, feeling your breath grow soft. A midday nap on the frontier is not a luxury, but a necessity for survival. Stormy nights steal sleep, forcing people to watch the fire half-minus awake, soothe children, and listen for sounds. When dawn brings calm, the body demands rest. You sit up again, glancing at the fire, the flame steady. Yet still, you kneel, gently placing wood among the embers, watching it smoke before bursting into flame. You pause, letting the warmth soak into your hands. A little minus-known passage from the Kansas farmed eyrie. After storms, people took turns staying awake during the day, resting in shifts to recover. Whether this pattern was widespread or rare remains a subject sleep experts continue to explore through documents and fragments of memory. You rise and walk to the window, sunlight piercing the frost, spreading soft light across the room. You wipe another patch of frost from the window, gazing out at the silent world. This view was made for contemplation, for easing the mind, for dissolving the night's tension. You imagine the pioneers who stood here, letting the morning light wash over their shoulders, knowing there were still moments of quiet before the work began. Perhaps they took a deep breath, closed their eyes and thought, allowing themselves to savor the rare stillness. You step back, arms raised high, shoulder blades shifting slightly, neck muscles twinging, traces of a restless night. You turn your head gently, repeating these small movements the pioneers once performed without thought, stretching stiff limbs before lying down again. A pioneer's journal contained a thought-provoking notes, and families called it the second rest. A brief respite at dawn after a storm forced them to keep a weary watch through the night. Whether this term was widely used or confined to specific regions remains a subject of debate among scholars studying rural sleep patterns. You return to the hearth, lifting the kettle to give it a shake. Warmth still gurgles within. The girls are inside. You ladle some into a tin cup, cupping it in your palms. Steam brushes your face, muscles around your eyes relaxing. Hot drinks aren't just nighttime comfort, they ease you into sleep, soothing body and mind after long hours of tension. You take a sip, imagining how the pioneers savored every thread of warmth touching their tongues. You approach the loft ladder, resting your hand on a rung. Climb a few steps, then pause, letting the warmth envelop your shoulders. Here, the world seems softer, more inviting. Many families use the attic for winter naps, where rising heat made it the coziest tea corner of the cabin. You picture yourself curled in a blanket nest, listening to the crackle of the fire below. After a storm, children especially drifted to sleep in the attic, their dreams softening once the winds ceased rattling the walls. You descend to your bed, carting the straw and smoothing the hides, sitting cross-legged on the leather mattress, leaning back. You imagine yourself hovering between wakefulness and sleep. Pioneers sometimes doze while seated, drowsiness pulling them into dreams. But when true sleep arrives, heavy and full, they embrace it gladly. Now you lie down fully, letting your head sink into the lumpy pillow, closing your eyes to listen. The cabin speaks in softer tones today. It's the faint whimper of moisture seeping from the beams, the gentle sigh of the hearth fire, the breeze brushing the shutters like a weary hand's caress. You take a deep breath, exhale slowly, your body relaxing, your spine settling into place. This is the taste of quality sleep on the frontier. When it finally arrives, it is not a surrender to fear, but a submission to release. You open your eyes and turn, imagining another family resting in a similar corner, one curled by the hearth, another leaning against the wall, children scattered across blankets in the loft. Sleep is shared, warmth shared, weariness shared, healing shared. You press your hand against the animal hide, feeling its lingering warmth, a fact seldom mentioned in winter letters. How remarkably insulating these skins can be, if used promptly after the hearth. Every household knows precisely how long this warmth lasts, and how to nestle within it before it fades. You push yourself up and walk to the far end of the cabin, crouching with your back against the wall. Sunlight casts long, pale streaks here. You imagine the settlers leaning against this weary wood until sleep gently pulled them forward. They might have awakened unsure how long they'd slept, but in the harsh winter, even a few minutes of slumber could restore astonishing strength. You rise again, facing the doorway. Beyond lies a frozen world, demanding attention, livestock to feed, snow to clear, tools to mend. Yet for now, the cabin still offers refuge. Sleep after the storm is not luxury, but survival. You pace back to the hearth, cross your legs, stretch your limbs, and close your eyes once more, letting your breath follow a slow, steady rhythm. The storm has passed, the peril receded, and now your body reclaims the peace stolen by the night. As your thoughts soften and your heartbeat steadies, you finally understand why sleep in the daylight after a storm is just as vital as the night watch. Sleep revives the pioneer spirit, warms the soul, and prepares the body for whatever lies ahead. Here in this quiet cabin, filled with sunlight and lingering warmth, sleep becomes possible once more. You stand in the center of the room, inhaling slowly as the morning light gently bathes the wooden floor. The storm has subsided. The hearth fire burns steadily, and the outside world is wrapped in a fresh brightness and stillness. You pull the animal hide tighter around you and walk toward the window. Frost still clings stubbornly to the glass, but the sunlight beyond flickers like a silent promise. You roll up your sleeves and wipe away another ring of frost. The world now appears soft and clean, pale as new, even the chill carrying a hint of contemplation. You step back toward the door, your boots making a faint creak on the packed straw. The latch feels much lighter than hours ago. Pressing your palm against the door, you sense a faint tremor. Beneath the thick snow, the world outside is awakening. The trail vanished. Footprints disappeared. Landmarks transformed beyond recognition. Yet the settlers knew they couldn't stay indoors forever. When blizzards erased everything familiar, these people learned to navigate by instinct. You walked toward the hearth and crouched beside the flames. The fire's warmth enveloped your fingers, making your skin sting as the cold receded. You imagine a pioneer performing the same quiet ritual before stepping outside. A trick repeated in early trapper manuals. Pioneers memorized the terrain around their homes before winter arrived, etching paths into their minds. That way, even when snow buried the roads, their feet remembered the unseen way. You rise and walk slowly toward the hearth, where flames wipe another thin frost from the windowpane. The world outside appears softer now, clean and pale, one of those mornings where even the cold feels gentle. You step back, turn toward the door. Your boots crunch softly on the packed straw beneath. The latch feels much lighter than hours ago. You press your palm flat against the door, sensing the faint tremor of the world beyond awakening beneath the thick snow. You always memorize the terrain around your home before the winter solstice, etching the path into your mind, so that even when snow obscures your vision, your feet can still follow the route your eyes can no longer discern. You rise and move slowly toward the wall, where several tools like quietly a shovel, a wooden pole, a rope. You imagine tying the rope around your waist, stepping outside, anchoring yourself to the cabin in case the wind picks up. Some families keep ropes by the door, ready for when. Trivia from the frontier trading post notes. People use ropes not only during blizzards, but also in the calm days after, when snow buries steep slopes or freezes streams. Was this wisdom widely shared, or confined to specific groups? For scholars studying winter navigation on the plains, it remains a mildly debated topic. You pick up those imaginary tools, tilting your ear slightly to listen to the muffled sounds outside. Snow sliding off the roof, distant cracks, perhaps icicles falling from branches. You approach the door again, pushing it open a few inches. A biting cold rushes in, jolting you awake. Opening the door wider, ample light floods the cabin for the first time in hours. Stepping over the threshold, you gaze out. Snow piles rise like white cliffs on either side. The world glows faintly, each reflection scattering tiny sparks into the air. The chill brushed your cheeks without stinging. You drew a deep breath, letting the cold air stretch your lungs. You imagine the pioneers must have breathed like this, that first liberating breath after fear and exhaustion faded. You step back inside and close the wooden door, The hut welcomed you with its familiar warmth. As you walk toward the bed, your footsteps leave soft impressions on the storm mattress. The straw rustles as you lie down gently, letting the animal hide cover your legs once more. Outside, a world in urgent need of rebuilding awaits snow shoveling, patrols, feeding, measuring, surveying. But for now, you sit in the cabin one last time, savoring this peace. You gaze up at the ceiling beams. Every storm reshapes the frontier. Every night teaches new wisdom about fire, cold, fear, and alertness about community and flesh. Your fingers trace the fur, feeling its softness beneath your touch. You imagine the pioneers who traversed these cycles year after year. Their sleep depended on watchfulness, warmth, faith, routine, livestock, tools, and hope. Their rest was never easy, yet always worthwhile. You slowly recline, letting your body sink into the straw. The hearth crackles beside you, sending faint waves of warmth to your skin. You close your eyes for a moment, imagining how, after such a night, you might drift into sleep, weariness mingling with chill, exhaustion softened by the calm after the storm, knowing the tempest has passed. Morning light will bring new hope. You open your eyes again, sit up, and survey this small room. This confined space holds everything: danger, fear, warmth, routine, survival. When people speak of the Old West, they often mention the vast open spaces, but real life is this narrow wooden hut, the faint glow of the hearth fire dispelling the darkness. You rise, smooth the animal hides on the bed, breathe in the smoky warmth one last time, let your palms touch the wooden walls. This cabin, like countless before it, has carried people through storms that would have swallowed them whole. You step into the center of the room, letting the storm's remnants fade from your mind. In this still space, the outside world has grown silent. The hearth glow dims. You let your body and mind settle. The long night ends. You arrive at tranquility. The storm has receded. It becomes a memory, leaving only the faint scent of smoke and the soft patter of morning snow. As you stand in this silent cabin, let the last chill slip from your shoulders. Feel your breath slow, deepen, and settle. Everything around you softened. The scenery, even your thoughts. Let the warmth of the hearth caress your skin like a gentle wave. Imagine that light seeping into your muscles, easing the tension storms always leave behind. Let your hands relax, your jaw slacken, your shoulders sink into comfortable weight. Nothing outside demands your attention. The world may rest undisturbed. Picture snow minus covered land stretching softly into the distance, smooth and untouched, like a quiet blanket, like a still horizon. No rush, no demands, only the tender stillness after a long, relentless night. With each breath, picture yourself lying on warm straw, a fur blanket pulled to your chest. Feel the gentle warmth of the hearth fire behind you, the softness of the bedding around you, the peaceful heartbeat of the cabin settling into silence. Now is the time to stretch your body and mind, releasing everything the storm has stirred. Each breath carries you deeper into stillness, deeper into warmth, deeper into silence. Let the night's lingering light melt from your mind like morning snow, letting thoughts flow lighter, slower, more effortlessly. You are safe now, the storm has passed. Sleep well.